range of about 65 feet. It was a small spear, reached speeds up to 93 miles an hour. This weapon was used over 100,000 years ago by man in Africa. The stone is a banner stone that they would tie on the end of it. He found it in the river, and it's just really, really rare. I don't know of anybody that, but it was a weapon all the way through the Paleo period, the Archaic period, all the way up to the late Archaic period. They were still using that weapon. Very effective weapon. There's a banner stone, and his banner stone is almost identical to that. They made the banner stones, some of them made them look like birds. They'd always have a hole through them so they could tie them onto their throwing stick. The drill that they use is the nose of that one board over there that has in circles. That middle stone is a drill that they probably drilled the banner stones with. The very first, I talked about this, 1838, Macedon was discovered on the Bourbous River in Gasconade County. Now just recently, somebody's saying, oh no, it wasn't Gasconade County, it was Phelps County, still on the Bourbous River, but real close. Either way, it's in this area. That was the earliest discovery of man associated with these exotic animals in North America. And all of his findings, I understand, are in England in a museum over there. The Macedon, the Clovis Point, he found some other axes and things to it. So, but it was not authenticated. Not until 1936 or 38, Clovis, New Mexico, did people understand what, like, there's an article written in 1938 or somewhere in there telling about this finding Clovis, New Mexico, and people here in Missouri go, wait a minute, we got one of those in a cigar box back here someplace. This was a very unusual time of year. There's something that happened here at the end of the Paleo period where the ice was melting and the water from the melting ice was cold, right? And it was running down the Mississippi River, basically. And for some reason, they don't know why, they think it might have been a comet that hit the Earth. And that's one theory, and then somebody says, well, where's the crater? If a comet hit the Earth, there's no crater. Well, this ice sheet was like 2 miles thick. So if there was a crater and it melted, you wouldn't have a crater anymore. So at that time, all of a sudden, the temperature changed, and the water, for some reason, dammed up in the Mississippi River and shifted over, and it started going into the Atlantic. And that cold water hitting the Atlantic caused the water temperature of the Atlantic to change temperature, causing a tremendous, there was a 2,000, I think I'm getting ahead of my slideshow here, about for 2,000 years, I think, off the top of my mind, of a period of a big change. And I think I got it right here. I put some of these in. I guess not. So there was a period, this is when the Paleo people and the Macedons and all of these giant game animals disappeared. All of a sudden, they're just gone. And the Archaic people were here. They developed after that, but they didn't have the Macedons to hunt with. And one thing man is really good at is adapting to temperature change. They can adapt where a lot of big animals couldn't. So that's the theory, the two theories on why the Paleo people and the Macedons and some of these animals here. We had horses in this area, camels, Macedons, mammoths, giant ground sleuths, and the giant bison. Macedon was about 8 to 10 feet tall, weighed around 8 tons. There's one. The Macedon was slightly smaller than the mammoths, with shorter legs, lower flat heads. Both species stood between 7 and 14 feet tall. Main difference, one were browsers and one was grazers. Long tusks could be, the tusk could be like 16 feet long themselves, 14 feet tall, about 9 tons. Giant bisons lived in North America some 200,000 years ago, became extinct 20 to 10,000 years ago. They weighed around 2 tons, stood over 8 feet tall. So I'm 6 foot, so that's a pretty good sized animal. You know, big horns. But they also hunted deer, rodents, smaller game. They didn't adapt in growing anything to eat. They didn't do that in the archaic period. If they found something, they would eat greens. My mom would go out in the Gasconade and pick greens, she called them, and we'd have it like spinach, and she'd cook it, and so we had that, and these people had that too. They ate berries and nuts, all the same thing there, but they didn't grow their own. That didn't start until the woodland period, or maybe the late archaic period. The giant ground sleuths were 4 tons, measured 20 feet from head to tail. They were vegetarians. Horse was about the size of sheep, had 3 toes on each foot. Camel was also small, about the size of goats. They lived here for over 30 million years. So obviously man wasn't here that long, but we did. At the very end of their lifespan, at the end of the Paleo period, they did meet each other. Here's the coal shock I was talking about. The coal shock caused by either the meteorite or the meteorite and the damming up of the Mississippi River caused a coal shock that lasted 1,500 years, which was really, really cold. And there's places out in Virginia where they found at least 4 or 5 feet of silt from these dust storms blowing across, cold, wind, and these animals just couldn't adapt to that. And am I going the right way? Yeah. The end of the big game hunters. So the Younger Dryas was the name of this cold snap. The big freeze, approximately between 12,800 and 11,500 years ago. So it was caused by the collapse of these ice sheets, but mainly because of the cold water running the wrong direction. And then if this meteorite hit, that created a whole nother problem that helped. The archaic period came along. These people had adapted to this local environment. They obviously adapted to the cold temperatures. Warmer climate. Dust storms were still common. A lot of the caves, when you go into a cave in Graham Cave, when I helped work there part of the summer, I think we dug down probably 8 or 9 feet before we started getting to actual artifacts down there, because that all top part was dust and just silt. It was used by Daniel Boone's cousin at one time, and it was used for making saltpeter at one time, and then it was used for a barn to put cattle in. It was a big open cave. I'll show it to you here in a minute. Here it is. This is a photograph that I took when I was working there. So,
excuse me, Jerry, are you aware it has been filled with gravel to protect it?
You're kidding.
I'm so sorry to report this.
Ah!
It was there last spring, a year ago spring. There had been a fence up across the opening, and you could look in and still see previously, other years, the fire pit and the stones around the fire pit. We went a year and a half ago, and it's now filled with gravel, and the fence is still there. And the only resident was a fox.
Oh,
Filled
weird.
with gravel.
Yeah, it was. If you follow the Gasconade River down to where it meets the Missouri River and cross the Missouri River, that's where you come out. So hello, these people, the people that lived here were Paleo and Archaic. They both lived in the same place. There's one site that I found on the Gasconade River where I found evidence of paleo people living there, archaic people living there, and I found a Clovis point in the garden of the farmer that lived there. So the farmer built his house in the same location that paleo people and the archaic people found. It was a good site. Everything was perfect. So why not live there? So for you arrowhead or archaeological people that want to look for stuff, look for sites that have good southern exposure, that have access to fresh water, and that might be, now the water level has changed, so it might be, Graham Cave is what, at least a mile, I would guess, from the Missouri River, if not more.
15.
15, is it
Yes.
that far? I know it's a long ways.
Well, the looter.
Luder is less than a mile.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, so you're gonna be facing south, good exposure, the north wind is gonna go right over your head. You're gonna be someplace where there's a slight pitch in the ground, so you have good runoff, and you're gonna have access to good fresh water, and preferably maybe two different sources of rivers, like where one river meets another river is an excellent place to look. So, some other shots of Graham Cave. Man was living there at least 8,000 years ago. We got tons of freshwater springs in Missouri. This is one over by Lebanon, Missouri, that runs even in the driest time of the year. This county here is part of what we call the Gasconade River Basin, which is located within the Ozark Highland. And this is unique because the watershed runs, what, north, doesn't it? Everything goes north. So all the flood they had up around Waynesville and Doolittle, guess where that's going to be? That's going to be down here probably today or tomorrow. And they had it there, what, 2 days, 3 days ago. So here's a good look at it. The blue here is the Gasconade River, and then you got the Piney River, and the Osage Fork of the Gasconade is over on the left. And that's the Gasconade Basin, and then all this big area around the Gasconade is the Osage Highland. And everybody that lives in there, all the artifacts found in this area are more closely resemble there's another group of Indians that live down here called the Ozark people that probably resembles them a little bit more, but this area is unique to the Merrimack Springs Indians. And we'll get into that here in just a little bit.